We're looking at chapter 2, where we will be focusing on some of the earliest societies that develop. Oops, wrong way, sorry. And so the four main groups that we're looking at, number one, the society that develops here in Mesopotamia, which is basically modern-day Iraq. Number two, we're going to be looking at ancient Egypt and the society that develops along the Nile River. Number three, we will be looking at the earliest Indian society that develops along the Indus River, excuse me. And finally, number four, we will be looking at early Chinese society, which develops along the Yangtze River and the Yellow River. Okay, now, yes, there are other groups, but these are the ones that we focus on because that's all the time we have for it. All right, now, some of the things that all of these areas have in common, I'm just going to go back really quick for a second, is the fact that all of them are next to rivers. All right, they're all next to these huge, major, important rivers. What do rivers have that make it so appealing, or that people were like, I'm going to start a civilization right here? Okay, well, water. All right, you need water. Okay, now, what did they need water for? Well, obviously, number one, for themselves. Okay, humans need water to drink. Number two, for the animals, because remember, now that we're not hunter-gatherers anymore, part of what the people have done is taken in the wild sheep and boy sheep, girl sheep, baby sheep, okay? And so they need water to drink, okay? Finally, if you're going to take plants and grow them on purpose, you need water, okay? And so these major rivers provided the best source of water, number one, okay? Now some people are like, well, what about rain? Humans haven't quite developed enough. In many areas where, like here, yeah, it rains. It fills up reservoirs. But usually there's a water table underneath the ground, and people dig wells down and then, bring water up. All right? People haven't quite gotten there yet. All right? We're still a couple thousand years before that. Okay? So, rivers are where the earliest cities and earliest societies start. All right? Now, what happens is that all of these rivers, okay, and we will look at all of them, they all flood at different times of the year and with different intensity. And what happens is when the rivers flood and then they recede back to their normal course, they leave behind all of these nutrients in the soil. All right? All plants, it doesn't matter what you grow, in some way, shape, or form, suck nutrients from the dirt. And eventually, it makes it useless. But with these rivers flooding constantly, okay, it's a constant source of nutrients, so you're able to farm consistently. And so, if you recall, all right, I think I have it on the next slide, more food, more people, more food, more people, more food, more people. So, you get a society that continues to grow. In addition, okay, eventually humans are able to develop systems by which, and once again, I promise I'll come back, because the floods only extend to a certain point, okay? And so humans are able to develop irrigation so that they can take water from location A, where there is a lot of it, to location B, where they need it, okay? Now, of course, the earliest ways they did it was just digging trenches and having the water, flow into that area, okay? And then finally, number three, if you notice, once again, all of these rivers, okay, are within a very temperate area. It's warm, okay? We're not talking about like up here where things are going to freeze over, and you won't be able to farm for most of the year. Okay, and so the top part is new. The bottom part I literally cut and pasted from like the previous slide, so you don't really have to go through that. But between 3,500 and 2,000, we begin to see the development of cities. Okay. Obviously, it doesn't happen like overnight. Obviously, humanity grows, but it doesn't happen, bless you, like in 10 years or 50 years. It's over a long period of time. Now, these are the major river systems where it happens, okay, and I've already shown them to you on the map. The Tigris and the Euphrates are in Mesopotamia, the Nile is in Egypt, and the Indus is in India, okay? Now, I don't list the two Chinese rivers because what happens in China is it actually takes a little bit longer for major cities to develop due to geographical and environmental factors, but it does happen, okay? It's just, a couple hundred years behind some of these other areas, okay? Now, as we mentioned, all right, in our last class, okay, food equal, or more food, more people. More people, more food, more food, more people, more people, more food, and the cycle continues. I mean, eventually it maxes out, but that's not for a while, okay? We have so much food. We have our surplus food that today you get to be my useless farmer, all right? Can't grow food, doesn't know how to do anything, but that's okay because we have a lot of food, plenty for everyone to eat. And so because he's no longer focusing on farming, okay, remember, people then begin to work on other things, okay? Whether it's basket making or art or wagons or woodworking or stoneworking, okay? And so in this case, we begin to see the development of these different things. And so the societies, begin to advance, begin to progress, because now, okay, I want to say Maya, but I know you're Maya. Ariana, okay, I need to think Grande. All right, Ariana here, she develops woodworking and wood carvings and things made out of wood so that, life becomes a little bit easier. And so, we are able then to build better houses and better furniture, okay? Amanda creates wagons and other basic forms of transportation, so we're able to move things farther and with less effort, type of thing. So society advances that way, okay? Now, when it comes to technology, okay, because of the, and I know right now we say the word technology and we think computers and iPhones and projector. No, okay, we're still thousands of years ago, okay? Because, we've got the bad farmers and they're able to sit and develop all of these other things so they don't have to worry about starving to death, okay? And this happens in Mesopotamia first, okay? They are the first society. This is where some of the first cities develop. And so because of that, okay, this is where we have the first developments as far as technology goes. The wheel is invented in Mesopotamia. Somehow somebody figures out how to make this round thing and then add other things to it so that Maya is our basket maker of the village. Okay, and I traded my apples for some of her baskets, and so now I can carry, maybe 2 or 3 baskets. But Ariana somehow figured out the concept of the wheel and how to make a very primitive wagon. So now I can put like 20 baskets on this primitive wagon that Ariana has invented. Okay, and so, we are able then to advance into other things. Okay. One thing that also begins to happen because of this, okay, the development of metals and metalworking, okay? okay? Sorry, Leia, also a bad farmer. But Leia begins to play around with these things that people are finding in the dirt and in the rocks. And if you melt it down, it turns all kind of liquidy, and then you can shape it into spears or into like tools for farming or into weapons, okay? Or into like things that, help you, do whatever, okay? At some point, one of these smiths, one of these blacksmiths, is playing around with copper, right? And is also playing around with tin, and they discover, and this happens in Mesopotamia, they discover that if you melt copper and tin, mix it together and let it cool, you get an even stronger metal, an alloy called bronze, okay? And so now the Mesopotamians are able to make bronze tools that allows them to dig without their tools breaking, that allows them to farm, that allows them to go to war, all right? Because their bronze swords are way stronger than the copper or tin swords of other people, okay? The Mesopotamians hold on to this secret for a while. Eventually it gets out. People figure it out, okay? But for the next 7,000 years, everything is made out of bronze, okay? It becomes so important, such a game changer. What do we call this era in history? No, we're past stone.
Oh.
The Bronze Age, not industrial yet, the Bronze Age, okay? It isn't until we discover iron, much later, okay? Although when people discover iron, bronze becomes obsolete, all right? Because iron is way stronger, okay? Oh, and then it's the Indians that do it. They discover that if you mix iron with carbon, it's steel, all right? Type of thing. But anyways, okay? So yeah, all right? It's the Mesopotamians that come up with this, okay? All of the other stuff that's there, I know I haven't, said too much of it, but, okay? Now, bad farmer who makes baskets. Bad farmer who makes things out of metal. Bad farmer who invented, the wheel and whatnot. Okay, sorry, I forgot what you invented, but we'll go with woodworking. All right, another bad farmer. Okay, now at first, people are just trading. Okay, I am trading my apples for all of these different things. And maybe Ariana goes to Maya and says, hey, I'll give you 2 wagons if you build me some furniture and make my hut pretty comfortable, okay? And Leia offers, some farming tools in exchange for, some baskets type of thing, all right? But eventually, humans begin to, we need rules, okay? How do I know that all of the apples that I give Maya is a fair price for Maya's products, okay? Type of thing. So we see the development of trade and commerce, and eventually people come into agreement that, certain things are worth X amount, okay? Now, as this continues to happen in society, okay, number one, we see the rise of social classes. Okay? Because the person who works with metals and makes weapons and tools somehow becomes more important than the person who makes baskets. Okay? And the person who helps invent transportation is somehow more important than the one that just makes really pretty furniture. Okay? And after several hundred years, it's kind of ironic because the farmers, the ones who made this all possible, are actually at the bottom of the social ladder, okay? Whereas other groups, are seen as more important, and so they're at the top or in the middle, all right? As far as gender roles go, I'm gonna apologize to you ladies a lot. I am so sorry, okay? Because at this point now, ladies, cook, clean, make babies. That's literally it. That's your job. That's all you do. All right. Everything else, then, it becomes a very patriarchal society where the men dominate, basically. All right. So we see that change in gender roles. All right. Whereas before, everybody hunted and gathered. Didn't matter. Okay. Now, the next divisions that we see, okay, because we went from settlements to villages to towns, and now we have the city. Okay, the first division we begin to see, and I'm going to move this. I hope you can still see that. Yes. Okay. The next division becomes from the people who live in the city, and I'm just going to draw a big square because they had walls. People who live in the city and people who live out in the fields, out in the country. Okay? Now, obviously, out in the country were all of the farmers, because that's where you produce the food. You can't have a farm inside the city. Okay? So all of the people that are providing the food are living out there. Meanwhile, inside of the city is where all of the people who create things. It's where the basket makers and the smiths and the woodworkers and the ones who make wagons and everything else, the ones who make clothing, the ones who do the art, oh, and of course we can't forget our riff guys all in the back, our warrior class. Okay, they're back there. They live in the city as well. Okay, and so farmers will come into the city to, number one, sell their food, but number two, okay, I need my wagon repaired, so we'll take it to the wagon maker. All right, some of my farming tools aren't really, cutting it anymore, so we'll go to the smith and have the smith make us some new tools. All right, we have a little extra food and we really want a nice comfy bed frame, so we'll go to the woodworker to make us a new frame. And so the two parts are interconnected. All right, remember, this isn't the only division. Okay, we have the pastoralist lifestyle, the transhuman. Okay, remember, they are the ones that have animals, and for the sake of keeping it simple, they're all sheep. All right, they have their sheep, they go out, okay, and they also live out here. Okay, they go out, and I wish I had a bigger board because I draw them over here, and they take their animals into the hills, into the valleys. They eat, they graze, they get fat, they make baby sheep, their fur gets huge, and then of course they come back to their home base, all right, and now they're ready to shear the wool, okay, to make cloth. They milk their sheep, so now they have milk, and of course you make creams and butters and cheeses and all that other kind of stuff. And of course, if necessary, you kill off some of the sheep, and so now you have meat. And just like the farmers, they go into the city, and Ariana buys my cheese and some sheep milk in exchange for a new wagon. Okay, and of course Ariana, because I need somewhere to sit while I'm out in the mountains. So Maya makes me a couple of chairs. And Maya, I don't know, she did the sheep meat. So, I give her like a half a sheep. It's all preserved and ready to be cooked for the next barbecue. All right. I don't know what it is about Leia. Loves sheep milk. That's all she drinks. Okay. So I bring her all kinds of gallons of milk. And, now I get, some new tools. Last time there were a couple wolves out there that attacked my sheep. She makes me a couple knives, maybe a spear, all in exchange for a couple gallons of sheep milk, and so on. Okay? So all of this is going on as well. Remember, we also have those nomadic hordes that are going back and forth. All right? And so, whenever they need something, they'll attack our settlements. Okay, that's okay though. We got a whole row of warriors back there in the back. You guys got us, right? Yep. So they go out there, they meet them, they fight them, they either fight them off or they get their asses kicked. Sorry, guys. And then, they raid us, they take stuff, they kill a couple people, maybe take off these, slaves, and, there we go. All right? So that's life, all right? That's our existence in these early cities, okay? And so, in addition to those 4 areas, okay, Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and China, there's a bunch of other places, like I said. Unfortunately, we can't look at all of them, all right? We might briefly mention like some of the areas in the Americas and like quickly some of the European places and some of the other places of Africa, okay? This purple area, that is where those nomadic tribes basically wander for thousands of years, back and forth, back and forth. And when they need something, all right, here they go, down into the civilized areas, raiding and plundering and pillaging and kidnapping and all of that, okay? And so, all right, we start with the Fertile Crescent, with Iraq, modern-day Iraq, or as it is known, Mesopotamia, okay? Now, the word Mesopotamia means between the rivers, all right? It's a Greek word. It's based on the Greek, okay? What 2 rivers are we talking about? The Tigris and the Euphrates. I promise I'll come back. All right? Tigris, Euphrates, both of these flood, both of these do, their fertilizing thing. And so this area, okay, is perfect for growing crops during this time. Okay? Now, I know this isn't geography, and I'm not going to ask you to tell me which one is which. But if you're a dork like Mr. Santos, the easiest way to remember, okay, Tigris kind of looks like tiger. It's on top because it's going to pounce on top of the other one, okay? Tigris pounces onto the bottom one, okay? Because that's what tigers do, all right? So, Tigris and Euphrates, okay? Now, like I said, both of these flood, and we'll talk about specifically, we'll compare it to some of the other rivers, but the Tigris and the Euphrates, have no pattern to their flooding, to their, to the way they operate. You never know when it's going to happen, okay? And so, in a sense, it's good, okay? Because with 2 rivers flooding over, the land is extra fertile, okay? You can grow a lot of food, and you can grow it year-round. So you will always have an abundance of food, okay? People are not going to be starving to death, okay? Even the ones that don't farm, number 1, okay? But because it is unpredictable, because it does destroy, stuff, okay? If it floods, if there's too much water, it could destroy all of your crops after you've planted them, but before you have time to harvest, okay? It could destroy your homes, your huts. It could destroy your city, all right? So, the Mesopotamians were like, it's either going to be a good year or a bad year, or it's going to be both in the same flood, all right? Now, what they typically tried to do is they tried to build levees to control the flooding. And it wasn't like today where, they know how to work with metals, but they hadn't quite figured out how to use it to control the river. So the levees that they built was just dirt. They're basically digging and putting, dirt banks on each side of the river. It helped, but it didn't control it the way they wanted. In addition, they also built very, very primitive canals, okay? If the river is gonna flood and cause destruction, let's at least try to move the water into areas where it causes least destruction, or even better, let's move it into areas where there's normally no water. And so now we have better, that's empty right there. Now we have better farmland. We have more farmland. We can use this, to farm, if we're able to move the water, okay? So, they're able to do that, but because they're literally just digging dirt, they're not like paving, they're not using metal, it basically, it's like a constant chore for the people that do it. And so that actually becomes a profession. The unskilled labor people, the ones that are out there constantly digging, constantly building up walls, constantly digging canals. They're the second to the bottom on the social ladder, all right? They're still above the farmers, all right, when it comes to these social divisions, all right? Remember that the two main crops that they grew, wheat, what do we use wheat for? Bread, and barley. What's barley for? Beer, yes. With some sheep meat and some cheese and maybe, whatever, some beer. All right, you got yourself a party. All right, so the Mesopotamians were living okay. All right, now, one of the issues with Mesopotamia, they had fertile soil. They had a lot of food. But that was pretty much it. All right? There were no other natural resources. Okay. Well then, Mr. Santos, how did they get the wood for woodworking and making wheels and wagons? Where did they get the stuff to make baskets? Where did they get the metals to make weapons and tools and to invent bronze? Okay? They traded for it. All right? I'll come back to this really quick. I need to find a map. Okay? The easiest thing they did was just follow the rivers. The Tigris and the Euphrates both start in modern-day Turkey. The area was known as Anatolia back then. All right? In modern-day Turkey, they are able to trade. Okay? Now, Turkey is very mountainous and very hilly. All right? So, yeah, they can farm, but they are not producing as much food as the people in Mesopotamia. So they are more than happy to trade stuff for all of this food. Okay? Number one, in the mountains you have forests. Okay? So this is where we're going to get the wood that Maya the woodworker and Ariana, the one who invented the wheel and the wagon and all of that, that's where we're going to get that so they can create those things. Okay? The main wood that was grown there was cedar. Okay? I think cedar smells awesome. Some people disagree. No, pine is not good. No, I love the smell of cedar. Okay? So, they worked with cedar predominantly. Okay? Because it is a mountainous area, there is a lot of metal. Okay? A lot of primitive mining. So, the people were happy to trade, this whatever worthless metal for the food that the Mesopotamians were bringing. Now we have copper and tin so that our smith can use it and make things, and that secret stuff, bronze. Okay? All of that can be done now. All right? There were a lot of precious stones, and especially one called lapis. Okay? Now, we're still dealing on a barter system. Okay? With the discovery of precious stones, people now slowly begin to switch to a unit of currency, and in this case, these precious stones became their earliest money. Okay? Eventually, they discovered this golden metal, that they begin to use instead. All right, and of course, we'll take Rory. Okay, all right, you've got some jewelry. Who realizes, if you put these really pretty rocks in your ear and maybe, put some rings on, on your finger, all right, maybe some of the metal that Leia makes, and you put some of this lapis on it, suddenly you look prettier and you look cool and whatever, and it's like, you got all of this stuff. And so now we have our first jeweler, our first artist here who can make, these things that whatever. Okay, and so all of this trade, let me show you the map again. All right. I don't know if it's an actual drill or a real fire. So it's Friday. I'm gonna stop right here. We'll finish this up on Monday.